Hello there guys, and welcome back to the channel. So in today's video we are going to be talking about Battlegrounds Season 10 Victory Track meta. On top of it, we are also going to be throwing in some additional tips for the first 2 weeks of the Gladiator Circuit meta, because it is quite similar, yet not exactly, because there will be some quite important changes with this away node, making some champions much more formidable on defense and perhaps requesting additional changes to your offensive roster as well, specifically in order to be able to counter their evasive maneuvers. But all that being said, let's just break it down, and I should probably start speaking slightly bit slower, but you guys should know that I'm just very excited the Battlegrounds are finally coming back, man. It has been horrible 2 weeks of no Battlegrounds, so let's break it down. Right. Hard Knock Life. Each time the attacker performs a successful, well-timed block, they gain a passive disorient, reducing defensive ability accuracy and block proficiency by 10% for 15 seconds, which basically means that you can parry, just not too much. So by definition, you ideally want to avoid using parry-heavy type of champions, or champions who exclusively rely on parries. Additionally, the main node of the meta is Ebb and Flow Knockdown. This is a fairly generic node, which means that most champions will be able to work within it. If I'd have to pick, then this is a type of node that primarily disadvantages science champions specifically. So the defender has a protection, reducing all incoming damage by 60%. Knocking down the defender removes the protection and grants the attacker a Fury passive, increasing attack rating by 40% for 12 seconds. When Fury expires, the protection returns and all debuffs are purified. So the debuff purification is exactly what is going to mess up some champions and make them significantly less effective if they rely on debuff buildup. And as we know, that is primarily science class, because there are plenty of science champions who rely on permanent debuffs being on opponent. Let's say something like anti-venom or semi-permanent debuffs, as in like debuffs that you keep refreshing and maintaining. Something like Mr. Fantastic or Void. These champions will not function properly because of this node. Other than that, the base idea is you need to keep knocking the opponent down before you do any large burst amount of damage, or ideally just, make sure you have your opponent knocked down pretty much as possible. So let's take a look at the best offensive options class per class. First thing to point out, Archangel will still work fantastic, because obviously neurotoxins can completely switch off Ebb and Flow node as such, so the Fury goes away, but the debuff purification and everything else also goes away. On top of it all, Archangel will suffer from disorient, but that will only affect his block proficiency and result in a slight increase in chip damage, but his ability accuracy cannot be reduced, therefore he's going to be an absolute beast in this first meta. Moving on, Havoc. And the reason why Havoc is going to be a very potent champion is due to about 2 or 3 factors. He's, as always, going to be a solid defender as well, but 40% increase in Fury will basically enable him to special 3 one-shot way more champions than he normally would. And then, on top of it all, he doesn't really mind if opponent purifies his plasmas. He's going to end up still, detonating them, and that will not ruin his ramp up. Additionally speaking, his heavy attacks will also still benefit from these 40% Furies. Thus, whilst the protection is going to be down, you are going to be doing significantly more damage with your plasma buildup. So I do expect Havoc to be quite effective yet again. Kitty Pryde is again a perfect champion that does benefit from Ebb and Flow knockdown node, because it's quite easy to knock down champions with Kitty Pryde, and she has aggressive playstyle, and majority of your damage comes from these massive special attack bursts, primarily level 2. So as long as you knock the opponent down before you drop the level 2, you will be doing solid amount of damage. The way I look at these Ebb and Flow nodes often is that for a brief moment, you kind of get the performance out of a champion almost comparable to if you had Liquid Courage Double Edge Mastery active, except with all the drawbacks. And if you use any champion that relies on a massive amount of burst damage, those champions will function quite well in situations like that. Additionally speaking, Toad is going to be great, especially against skilled champions, And that is going to be yet again because of the debuff purification clause, because when protection expires, all the poisons from your opponent are going to get purified, and there's going to be a significant possibility that they get turned into passive poisons with massively increased debuff, poison potency against skill champions. So Toad is going to be a very, very dangerous skill hunter in this meta. Now again, deck class Ghost, it's relatively self-explanatory again, primarily to the idea where she delivers significant amount of her damage while level 2 and she accesses level 2, so basically get to level 2, drop a heavy attack, land your level 2, you're going to be doing a lot of damage and better than she would normally perform. Nimrod, again, most of his damage comes from that big level 2, so if you have 40% Fury active whilst you are dropping the level 2 with those passive shocks, many more champions will go down with a single level 1, level 2 rotation than they normally would. Penny Parker is one of the best sleeper picks here, in a sense, where Penny Parker is going to be significantly more dangerous than she normally is, with that similar explanation as I have been going by, where vast majority of Penny Parker's damage comes from an amped up level 2. And now if you apply 40% Fury to that, that will carry over not only to the burst damage that she delivers, but also to the incinerate damage that you place on opponent. And with 8-second duration, you will pretty much still have incinerates that last almost the full duration, because that Fury lasts for 12 seconds. So the base loop here would be get to level 2, drop a heavy attack, immediately going to level... get to level 2, drop a heavy attack, immediately drop your level 2, and then you will pretty much have full incinerate duration with 40% increased damage on that, as well as 40% increase in your burst damage. So Penny Parker is going to be very effective. Warlock, again, similar idea. You will, however, be unable to do the parry heavy matchups with Warlock, but overall, I believe he's going to be solid champ, as always, with significant increase in damage. And Iron Doom has additional cool things going on for himself in this match. And the additional help here is his ability to basically combo into heavy attacks. So you will have absolutely no problem inflicting your... playing around Ebb and Flow knockdown node at any given point. And one of the coolest things on top of it all is that if you are in your aura, or if you have your aura active, your specials are unblockable. So it will be super easy just to hit your opponent, drop a heavy attack, and immediately activate your level 2 after opponent has been knocked down, and benefit from that 40% damage increase. And on top of everything else, he is the type of champion, again, that delivers large amount of his damage on level 2. So I do have quite high hopes for Iron Doom, opposing to most of the metas. Moving on to Cosmic class, I think Adam Warlock is going to be very, very kind of like a solid pick for this meta potentially. And namely because he's not the easiest champion to knock down on defense as well, because you don't really want to be blocking against him that much. But also the fact that he can spam his specials very, very freely. And then if you have him at a super high sig or a max sig, opponents easily get stunned after your specials, after they strike in your pod. So that gives you basically a free opening to knock opponents down by just retreating into your pod at your own discretion whenever you want. And again, quite special, spammy, happy champion. And the cool thing is also absolutely zero reliance on any debuffs at any point. So whenever the protections does come back, it doesn't really stop Adam Warlock much at all. CGR, I still think is going to do CGR things. I think with that 20% increase, 40% increase passive Fury, increasing your level 2 bursts is going to be great. Additionally, if opponent does purify your Damnation debuff, then it immediately gets replaced by 5 armor breaks. So there will be some very cool and interesting interactions, but I do think CGR is going to be putting in quite a lot of work in this meta. Hyperion, I think, is going to be quite interesting pick, because he's going to be solid offensively and defensively, in my opinion. Because one of the things about Hyperion is you consistently need to worry about baiting out special attacks from him, which often does not really give you that much space to throw a heavy attack and then follow it up with something else. Typically, the fights against Hyperion go where you throw a combo, bait out his special attack, you throw a combo, bait out his special attack, then you drop your special attack or something of the sort. But now that you need to squeeze in that heavy attack knockdown, and then you try to capitalize from that 40% fury against Hype, it will often not be possible because he's going to waste time by throwing his own special attacks, and then you're going to need to think about, the power bars. And again, I do think that Hyperion is going to be quite a bit trickier to fight against than many people realize. And other than that, Hyperion, I think, is going to work tremendously well offensively due to two reasons. Number one is he's a special spammer, which means he's consistently going to be finding ways how to easily knock the opponent down to begin with. You're not going to need to rely on parry heavy or block bait a heavy attack type of thing. And he also has a chance to stun, which can enable you to knock down the opponent yet again. So I do think Hype is going to be quite good. Moving on to Mystic class, we have America Chavez, and her upsides here are yet again going to be the ability to chain a heavy attack to her basic combo, therefore effectively being able to knock opponents down freely whenever. And then her large amount of damage on those level 2s is going to be significantly aided by that 40% passive fury for sure. Dr. Doom, similar explanation to iDoom, except that I think that Dr. Doom is going to benefit from it even more. And the reason for that is with that 40% fury, you don't really need to go for level 3s. You just need to make sure that you have that passive fury active when you activate level 2, and you're going to be doing a ton of damage. Because that special 3 fury obviously is still more potent. 6.6k attack. So it's like 150 something percent. But I do think that in a generic matchup, with that 40% fury, you will more than likely going to be able to outpace Dr. Doom's regular performance. And again, ability to freely knock down the opponents. Absorbing Man, I believe, is going to be fantastic here, largely due to his ability to just simply hunker up and block bait heavy attacks and alike. Due to his massive resistances, you don't need to worry about parrying and getting disoriented when you can just hold block, take a tiny amount of chip damage, and then knock the opponents down with your heavy attacks, thus working and fueling Absorbing Man's kit of, gaining extra crit rates and stuff like that. So Absorbing Man should be functioning well. Longshot is definition of a champion that benefits from increased attack rating from Liquid Courage Double Edge, but has no way to survive the drawbacks. If you have played Longshot with Recall Masteries active, you will know how much better his damage output is. And with this node combination, Longshot effectively gets all the benefits and very little to no drawbacks. Because Longshot does have passively increased base ability accuracy, which means that even when you're disoriented, your parries will not fail. And then on top of it all, you do have this level 2 that does generate vast majority of the damage that you are going to be applying with the increased 40% passive fury. Longshot is going to be an absolute candy in the ebb and flow knockdown meta. Promise. Jaggy is going to do Jaggy things. I'm not going to elaborate further. Juggernaut is going to be a beast. And now moving into the class that is kind of like the most disadvantaged. I do think that Hulk is likely going to be one of the most solid options here, because he does obviously benefit from placing debuffs on the opponent, and if they get purified, that will be a problem. But at the same time, he has such a massive amount of burst potential, where I think that if you throw a heavy attack on the opponent, throw your level 2, and then keep racking into them, pretty much everything should be going down extremely quickly. Or you can just use the strategy of parry heavy, use level 3, and then nuke the opponent down. So I think Hulk is going to be one of the best science options in the meta where science champions will not necessarily function that well. Human Torch is still going to work great. You will need to count on more block damage than normal with Human Torch. However, quite possibly my suggestion would be is instead of parrying, just initially block bait heavy attack and then, just kind of like pace yourself. Perhaps you want to avoid the disorients that you're going to be getting from parrying and just let opponent actually tap your block a bit. Still going to be an absolute nuke. The problem is that you will need to be quite clever in the way you manage your parry damage, your block damage, and building up smolders. Joe Fixit. Definitely a science champion that will function on the best side, kind of similar to Hulk. You do want to have your debuffs from your special attacks, but at the same time, if you go for level 2 route, vast majority of your damage will still come from having these fades active, increasing your critical rating and providing you extra attack for massive level 2 damage. And then you can benefit from, your generic science advantages as well, because he's still going to be a champion that doesn't trigger buffs, that handles mystics well, that is poison immune. Yeah, so I do think Joe Fixit is going to function just about fine. Also, you will have the option of healing back some of the chip damage, which is always appreciated. Silk, again, a fantastic option, with her being one of the champions that can combo into a heavy attack, therefore knocking down opponents on frequent basis will be absolutely no problem at all. The cool thing is that her rotation will effectively let you do the most important rampa bit whilst the protection is active, then throw that heavy attack and then quickly squeeze in your special attack. So I do think Silk is going to function just about fine. I don't think it's perfect for her, but I think she's going to be one of the better science options. I think Titania is a great champion for this meta as well, because in case of Titania, she doesn't rely on keeping her debuffs on the opponent for a long time, with the exception of the finishing level 3 sequence. She just relies on placing the debuffs on the opponent, and she also obviously has easy access to knocking the opponent down with her Haymaker abilities. And yeah, I think Titania is going to be quite solid too. Last one that I did want to mention, Scorpion. I think Scorpion can function. I don't think he's going to be as great as he potentially could be. This is not ideal meta for him. But here, again, the key would pretty much be where you build up your debuffs as you are getting to your level 2. Then you drop a heavy attack. Then you drop a level 2. Hopefully opponents throw their special attack as well, whilst they are getting the increased damage from your sting. And then you kind of have to rinse and repeat. Scorpion will be slower, but I do think you can kind of work around it. Will remain to be seen. In skill class, I think Kate Bishop is going to be absolutely the biggest MVP. And Kate Bishop is a perfect champion for the next meta. If you don't take anything else away from this video, then know that Kate Bishop is going to be an absolute monster. Now, why is that so? Number one is because she locks in her damage basically based on attack what it is at the time of special attack. Because once you activate your level 1, you're going to benefit from that 40% passive fury. And then that passive fury is going to stay there forever, as long as you keep refreshing it. So she's going to have a massively increased damage output. Again, she is a similar champion to Longshot, where she absolutely does benefit from recoil mastery, increased attack, but has nothing to survive it. And this will let her work around it. So that 40% fury is going to have a drastic impact on the amount of damage that she deals. That's number one. Number two, she quite possibly has some of the easiest access to knocking the opponents down with the heavy attack due to the way her evade mechanic works and her parries work. So you will frequently be knocking down the opponents anyways. And number four, Ebb and Flow Knockdown purifies debuffs but not passives. So unlike most other champions that rely on dot effects or dot damage, she will suffer absolutely no drawbacks. There will be no point when her cold snap gets purified, or even that passive stun that she applies to the opponent. So I think Kate is going to be an absolutely amazing champion for the next meta. Kingpin, I still think is going to work just about fine. Kingpin also has a chance to shut off Ebb and Flow node, and I don't think there's going to be too many problems using Kingpin. I think Hitmonkey is the type of champion that will do extremely well in the upcoming meta too, because champions that do have access to super high crit rates or guaranteed crits, but don't have attack modifiers in their base kit, highly benefit from any Fury buffs and stuff like that. And that fits Hitmonkey perfectly. Now, I would also have wanted to show Mallman here, but Mallman unfortunately does have that parry heavy ramp up, which is going to be a problem. But Hitmonkey can definitely work around that. So I think Hitmonkey is going to beast. And here is going to be another secret MVP, quite possibly a champion that I will be taking to rank 4 next. And that is Stealth Suit Spiderman. Stealth Suit Spiderman is going to be amazing for both of the metas this season. And the reason is, whenever he dashes back, he pauses the passive effects on him for 2 dashing back or evading incoming hits, pause, fury, and precision passives for 3.5 seconds. And that will include the fury from Ebb and Flow knockdown. So with Stealth Suit Spider-Man, you basically just get 40% damage increase with no real drawback. You can knock the opponent down once, gain your passive fury, and then you can basically maintain it for pretty much the entire fight. And you don't need to worry about knocking the opponent down again. And yeah, then also increase the potency of fury passives by up to 40%, so it's going to be even more potent fury that you get. Stealth Suit Spider-Man is going to be a beast in the upcoming meta. Alongside Kate, I'd say probably 2 of the MVPs for the next meta, if I have to take a guess. And Valkyrie. Now, initially I thought that Valkyrie might be a bit tricky to use, because you don't really want to knock the opponent down, and you often don't, because when you activate your special attack, you hit it in block, opponent doesn't get knocked down. Then I realized Valkyrie at a high enough rank, when ramped up properly, will definitely have enough damage and reach to just nuke the opponent down immediately. And if you do use a heavy attack, she converts her buffs into passives with basically doubled potency, and that will give her that much extra damage in combination to that 40% passive fury as well. So I am quite sure that with Valkyrie it's going to be ramp her up to about 2.5 bars of power or 2.8 bars of power, drop a heavy attack, and then just go crazy. Can go wrong, but I'm sure that she will be one of those champions that will put up some ridiculous scores in the next meta. The final champion to mention is ShangChi. Again, super easy access to stun and, knocking the opponents down with heavy attack. It's perfectly fit in your champion rotation, and a very significant benefit from that 40% passive fury, because you get guaranteed crits. So yeah, I think ShangChi is going to function extremely well too. Now, additional mention for when we are going to be getting the Gladiator Circuit version of this meta, you do want to watch out for champions that have additional effects as for when they evade, like Scorpions and Spider-Hams and Mr. Negatives and Cassie Lang and Hitmonkey potentially, or Kate Bishop, and Elsa Bloodstone and Black Widow Deadly Origins and Mordo. All of these champions are going to be very dangerous because their ability Kit Evade also functions with the node evade. So whenever, for instance, you're going to be knocking down Kate Bishop, she's going to be gaining a guaranteed evade charge from the nodes in the Gladiator Circuit. And then when you try to strike Kate Bishop after you have knocked her down, she's going to evade and you're going to get passively stunned. So in the Gladiator Circuit version of this meta, there are going to be a lot more traps available. And therefore, evade counters like Falcon and so on are going to be way more important. Because it's going to be easy to kind of mess you up, especially in a situation where you can get, passively stunned or placed shock on you. Stuff like that will hurt. As for defenders, and as far as the defenders go, there is nothing kind of like too crazy that I specifically want to point out. Any champions that are somewhat trickier to knock down will be better. Therefore, champions like Ebony Maw, for instance, where you need to rely on reparry, are going to be hard. A special defensive shout out I would want to give to Shuri. Because again, Shuri is going to be quite hard to knock down easily. She has a very rapid heavy attack. You can't parry or reparry her. She's shock immune, so like Dr. Doom and Iron Man Infinity War will not be able to do the, heavy into the combo thing. And it is going to require fairly specific champions to do well with Shuri. And additional champions obviously will include Ebony Maw, Havoc, Nova. Those are the champions that will gain like innate advantage in these metas. Maybe Baron Zemo or Iron Man Infinity War in defense. Again, just purely down to the fact that you will be forced to reparry. Therefore, once you try to parry the first hit, you're going to get disoriented, and then your second hit parry might fail again, and you're going to be taking more block damage. So I think Iron Man Infinity War, Infamous Iron Man, Shuri, Nova, champions alike are going to be quite troublesome to deal with, alongside champions like Mordo. Potentially Kate Bishop will be viable defender as well. It's going to be interesting to see how that works out. Let me know if you have any questions, and I will try my best to answer them. Bye. Hello there guys, and welcome back to the channel. So we have all the information about